All right, everybody. It looks like we are once again live, but I'm the only one here. So I don't know if Never Enough Ammo and gun websites just didn't get the link, or they just don't understand that I'm on a different channel now, or what. But it doesn't look like anybody's shown up yet. Doesn't really affect anything, except that I'll have to do most of the talking again unless somebody shows up. Because we still do the same thing. I just have well, Never Enough Ammo's here. Hold on.
Well, hello.
Hello.
Finally remembered. Well, I feel shortchanged. We're on some shitty little second channel.
Yeah, well, I've been a bad person, and I was.
You're just too damn dangerous to the internet.
It's definitely to the YouTube community.
Yes,
because I picked up a gun. I held one in my hand on a live chat. The very fact that the video had ended and nobody got hurt should have been an indication that it wasn't really that dangerous.
You would think so, but then again, I also got banned, and they tried to take my live abilities away because I picked up a Megatron toy
that looked like a gun.
So their standards are pretty low.
Yeah, they're pretty. What would I say? They don't apply their rules evenly across the board.
No, not at all.
I mean, you hear video. I see things all the time of like, oh, G-Webs is here. Hold on, let me add him to the thing here. So G-Webs is here now.
Work. I'm doing it on a phone today.
Uh-oh. So if anybody here just wants to have we're doing like we normally do. Just if you got questions, put them in the live chat. Put at the Yankee Marshal in front of them if you want me to see them. The only difference is we can't do super chats. I'll have to create a link here if you all want to donate to Pets and Vets. I'll create a link here and put it over in the comments. Oh, look, there's Mello. I will put it in the chat here. Customer sets price. Leave note. I'll just change that to super chats. And then you all can go over there. We'll just cut YouTube out of it. It doesn't work. This doesn't do very well because most people, I think, don't like using PayPal, but you don't have to use PayPal or have a PayPal account. You can just use your debit card if you want to, but I'm going to put it to the top over here. If you want to get our attention with a message there, you can. Also, you can just put at the Yankee Marshal in front of your comments over in the live chat. We'll try to get to them. But we'll get the chat started here. As you can see, G-Webs is driving around. He's got Mello there. And where's the other one? Oh, there he is down there. Yep, the little ones always get the floorboard. That's just not fair, but that's how it usually goes. But do either of you two have any topics you definitely want to cover today before we get started?
No. I don't even know what's going on in the news today. Is anything significant happen? I have no idea. Every single day for like the last month, the top story is always something about one of Trump's trials, and I just don't care anymore.
Yeah, I'm not interested.
I kind of stopped paying attention to the news.
Yeah, I haven't even been watching the news. I quit watching the news several months ago, and I tell you what, it's a lot better not watching the news. I read my news feeds, but I get to selectively see what I want to read, and I don't have to listen to the same story again and again and again. Although they do repeat a lot of stories over there. You'll see something that you think is new, and it was really from like a year and a half ago. Yeah, I just haven't been watching any broadcast news, and I think I'm better off for it, to be honest.
I don't watch broadcast news, but I used to on a daily basis. I check out Google News. I'll check out like Not to Be. I go to Ground News. That's a big one I go to a lot. I'll check out like some stuff on the right, like The Blaze, and I'll check out some stuff on the left, like Vox. And I would go to just, different things to see what was going on in the world, to see what everybody was talking about. And it's always Trump. The top story everywhere is Trump's trial. And I don't give a crap because there is absolutely nobody in the world that is going to be swayed by this trial. You either already like him or you already hate him. And I don't know why it's such a big deal, because they have made it so divisive that you either hate him and there's literally nothing he could do or not do that would make you vote for him, or you have already decided to vote for him, and you honestly don't care if he literally did, as he once said, walk down the street and shoot people in Central Park or Avenue or whatever the fuck it was. You don't care. You're going to vote for him anyway. So I don't know why it has to be the main story every day for eternity, because nobody cares. Nobody really cares. It is not making anybody's decision for them. It is not swaying anybody.
Yeah, it's not interesting either, because it's just them going over talking about, here's what we think the judge might be thinking, or here's what we think the prosecution is thinking. If you got to do that, then it's not all that interesting, because if you don't have any concrete evidence, it's just always this person testified and now we think this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, just wait till it's over and let everybody know what happened. Because, ongoing coverage of it's just not that exciting. I mean, and it's not like it's the OJ trials or anything. It's not like he killed 2 people.
Yeah.
It's about whether he illegally violated campaign finance laws.
Oh, he might have paid hush money, or he might have had someone pay hush money, or maybe he did know about it, or maybe he didn't. I don't care.
It's not murder.
I hope he did. I hope he fucked Stormy Daniels, and I hope he paid her off, and I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I don't care. Good for him. Whatever. Good for him. I don't care, because compared to what every other politician has done my entire life, it's like a drop in the bucket. Like, oh God, he paid hush money. How many Republicans and Democrats have paid hush money that we just never heard about, or that the media just covered up because they like it?
How many of them have probably disposed of a hooker's body or had a
exactly? You're making such a big deal. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care. But like I said, if anybody's got any questions or comments, just put them in the chat over there, or you can use the link at the top that I put in there. Let's go over here, see if there's any questions coming in. Oh, I need to read. Did anybody? I don't think I won't do that today because it's a live chat.
I got a topic, but we haven't talked about, at least I don't think, in a while. The NRA show's coming up. Can you hear me okay? Because I'm driving.
I can hear you.
Yep.
Okay, so the NRA's show is coming up, and the elections happen where the members, vote on people, and there's like 75 people on the board, and essentially Wayne has moved out. The people that he wanted never got even a chance to get in, and the board shuffled quite a bit. There's like 4 people on that are reformists, and they got on with the majority of the votes, so that moved them to the top of the list. And there's not one person that's going to SHOT Show that I'm aware, or that's going to NRA show that I'm aware of, that's going to pay any attention to the reform that's happening at the NRA. So people love to throw them underneath the bus and blame them for everything and act like, every problem we have is associated with them, and then, we'll never trust them again, or we'll never deal with them again until, what, but if now Wayne's gone, there's a new board, and we're going into the show where the members have all the power, and where's any attention towards this? Where do you guys drop on this one?
I'm on the I don't give a shit about the NRA. I don't think they're necessary. I think they're one of the greatest evils that ever existed in the gun community. They're responsible for dividing the gun community up into political camps, and they've done more damage than any other.
The organization that's $200 and something million, or is it the people that were at the top for a number of decades in its hundreds of years existence?
Both, and I just don't really give 2 shits about them, and we don't need them. There's nothing that these national.
So that's where I differ, because I think that it's leaving a lot on the table. It doesn't matter what the NRA is, but it's $200 million, and it's a massive infrastructure, and it's that break tied to what the idiots and the antis think. By losing it, we're eventually watching it burn, and we're giving Bloomberg a benefit, and we're not taking the advantage of learning how to work together. Even if only a portion of us, even only if 10% of NRA members decide to work together, that's an opportunity. By everybody just turning their back on it, then we all go, hey, when's things going to change? How are things going to be different? And when there's an opportunity for something massive to be different, nothing. That's all I'm saying.
I disagree with you on how it's going to be different. I don't think it will be that different. And 2, I don't think that the only 2 options.
It has to be 100% change, and it has to be perfect in order to put any effort towards it.
But I don't think the only 2 options are let it burn or help supporting them and hope they change. I think there's also the option of we dismantle them ourselves, admit they've done wrong, admit the harm they've done to the gun community, and say we don't need them anymore. we can be organized and we can be united.
How do you suggest that? That's a $200 million organization. The next closest, I just did the numbers the other day, the next closest organization is maybe 15 million. Where do you think all that, you really think $200 million worth of infrastructure is just wasted and it's just vaporware?
I don't really give two shits about
Well,
the
you
how
said that we can replace, we can do something without them. Like we can
can.
replace what they do. So how do we replace the $200 million worth of what they do?
Well, the $200 million isn't what they do. The $200 million is what they're worth. There's a
Well,
big
that represents the amount of infrastructure. I'm using that as a number since we don't have much more besides that in member numbers. But we have their infrastructure, all the training, all of the range requirements, all the infrastructure through military police and every kind of CCW stuff, that kind of stuff. When we
none of
remove
that,
all
and
that, what do we
a
replace it with?
national organization isn't necessary for any of that now. All state organizations can operate within their states very well, can communicate very well, be very interconnected because of the age we live in, the information age. We don't need a bunch of old white guys sitting on Capitol Hill somewhere saying if we're the ones that have to organize everything, and we're the ones that have to do everything, and we're the ones that have to control where the money goes and who says what to who. We don't need that anymore.
Right,
So
fair enough. So you're not interested in giving them any kind of, or giving the concept any kind of attention.
That's a fool me once, fool me twice, fool me 7, 8 times. It's been too much with the NRA. And
I understand that if it was a human being, but we're talking about a membership organization with 5 million people. And again, it represents a massive chunk of what we are as a gun community.
Yeah, but the next people that get in there and start making the big bucks, just like Wayne LaPierre and them will pretty much probably do the same thing. So
that's discouraging because, yeah, that's not giving anybody an opportunity to be different.
Yeah, and that's because most people, when it comes down to it, aren't different. When money becomes a big thing, and when you're like you're saying, when you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, and some people can profit greatly off of it, those people tend to profit greatly off of it instead of doing what's right. So I prefer not to consolidate all of our eggs in one basket, where if one asshole runs off with the basket, we're out of all our eggs. I rather keep our eggs spread around where they can do the most good and never give one person the ability to control all the eggs. So
right, and they're never going to be able to set it up that way, so it can't turn into that again. So we know that can never happen. But even if something like that were to happen, you're too worried about that being an issue. Then again, the concept of saying, hey, as a community, let's take what we've got here and do something with it, instead of just again letting Bloomberg get the win and the NRA's gone. And I know you said there's the option of us
I don't
taking
think
it
it has to be a win for Bloomberg. The NRA dug its own grave for one, and the gun community is not the NRA. The NRA is not even a fraction, a tiny fraction of the gun community. So if the NRA burns to the ground tomorrow, as you put it, it's not that big of an effect on the actual gun community. All it is an organization that has done more to tear gun owners apart, alienate people from the gun community, and rip money from people's wallets while doing very little with it. That's all they've really done. When you look back through what they've done in history, hell, they're responsible for some of the biggest gun control measures.
Well, we disagree on that because there's only like one article that even suggests it, and everybody points to that until somebody can show me something in the congressional record where it actually shows more than just the president of the NRA back in the olden days said something one time. But I hear what you're saying.
So yeah, we don't need them until we move on beyond that idea that we need like a central building somewhere with a bunch of old white guys in it who are more interested in, what they can do for their own personal businesses, etc., and their friends' businesses, etc. Until we can move beyond that, we're not going to evolve much. And we need
can we evolve without going back and saying that when something did something wrong, the organization can never change?
Well, it's not because one person did something wrong. It's because the organization itself leads to corruption. But the principle itself, when you allow someone or someones to be the ones sitting at the top where everything gets funneled to them, and then we trust them to do what's right, that just leads to disaster. So
I agree, and that's what happened, and we have proof that it happens because it happened. So I'm saying, you don't think there's any effort to be put into putting the organization, the remains of it, back into a different structure that's open source and can't happen? So you're saying we can step off from this massive infrastructure
we can evolve
something that's equally as effective without parts of it as that infrastructure. So I just don't think that's
Infrastructure,
possible. I think that I'd love to be optimistic, but I don't see that as being
infrastructure
realistic.
is meaningless. You're stuck in the 80s with the infrastructure stuff.
Well,
Infrastructure
I'm using that as a way to suggest all the different things that it encompasses. For example, the museums and the collection that it
most,
has. What
the
happens to
most
the museum and the collections when they're
Well,
dismantled?
that's a different concept altogether. That's just like, oh, I want to preserve history. That's fine. Open a museum with the stuff that they have. But the other thing, the actual, what you're saying about do we need them? Should we have them? All that stuff. We don't need them. Infrastructure is overrated. The most valuable thing that the NRA has, it isn't any building, it isn't any person, it isn't any bank account. The most valuable thing they have is their mailing list. And that's pretty much it. That's the only thing they have to me that is any value whatsoever. Because all we need in this day and age is a dedicated group of people who aren't in it for the money and aren't making big salaries, who work together. People don't have to come together in a big office building anymore. People can be in every different part of the country and be working in the same room, basically. So all we need is a dedicated group of people that work on the ground level at their own states, counties, etc., and a way to bring these people all together so that they can share ideas and share information of where help is needed the most. And that's all we really need. We don't need fancy buildings or museums or any of that stuff. That stuff's fine in its own right, but it has nothing to do with fighting for the Second Amendment. In my mind, anyway.
Well, you're right. Most of the infrastructure I'm talking about has nothing to do with the Second Amendment. It has to do with, again, the infrastructure of our community, which is the stuff that we all take for granted and we're not going to understand until it's not there.
Well, even the infrastructure of the community, I don't like the way NRA ever did that. I mean, who likes the idea that I hear people all the time like, hey, I want to go join my local range, but they said unless I join the NRA, I can't do it.
Right. 2020 hindsight is a bitch. And when we look at stuff in the focus of 2024 and go, hey, the way they did things in 1974 was lame. But when we look at it in the terms of 1950, and how are we ever going to get to a place where there's institutionalized or normalized gun facilities? It was through their infrastructure and through all that. And when there was a time when we had antis who were attempting to confuse the issue, then they created these barriers to that. And if the barriers aren't necessary, it's easy enough to remove them. I just don't think you need to burn down the entire infrastructure when there's one, issue out of place. And when we're talking about infrastructure, I'm talking about the state level, local level organizations that are essentially the tentacles or the feelers or the roots of the massive organization. Those members don't all sign up to one membership portal. They all sign up to those individual issues in all the different states and counties, and they all come together to be the NRA at the national level.
They don't need to be part of the NRA, because being part of the NRA or being
I hear you, and I think you're confusing me suggesting that effort done towards salvaging the resources is the same as saying we need to put Wayne LaPierre on a fucking pedestal. You must know by now that I have no loyalty to anybody except getting this fucking game over with already. And when we're talking about burning the whole fucking thing down versus taking it apart and using the girders and other structures, that's what I'm talking about. And I don't think we take apart the girders and use them on other structures by burning it down and suggesting we're going to create other girders and other pieces of material.
But we need to dissolve the fucking NRA. Like I said, the options aren't just do we prop it back up or do we let it burn down. We dismantle it ourselves. And we keep the good and throw away the bad, and most of the bad is everything at the national level.
But I think you do that from within. I don't think you tear it apart and see what you got left. I think you take it apart and see what you can use.
As long as that national entity exists, it's something. It has not been for the longest time. It's been a weapon against the gun community, because all they got to say on the
no one's denying that. But that's why I say you can either say, well, the organization has been used poorly, therefore it can never be used again. Or I'm looking at it like, hey, why don't we re-educate and change it and get it to where it's a strong weapon again for us?
I'm looking as the weapon at one point was necessary. It was misused. It's no longer necessary now.
Well, that's fair.
So
that's fair.
We don't need to rebuild it. And we definitely don't want to rebuild it in any way that builds back up to what we had. Like, I don't want a national organization, because even if it's got tentacles in every state, well, those tentacles, what do? They suck everything out of the state, send it back to the national organization. I've seen that time and time and time again, especially working here in Washington, where the NRA comes in and says, let's do this and let's do that, and let's raise $200,000, and here's you all 20,000 of it, 180 of it's got to go back to us because we came in and helped you. You know?
Well, you've got two massive organizations that bring in something like $14 million a year, and the NRA comes in, and you think they're going to clash, or you think they're going to work in harmony every fucking time they talk? Same thing in Colorado. The most money spent besides at the NRA was spent in Colorado, and what did that do for preventing anything happening in Colorado?
The NRA, I don't think, has been actually responsible for any good thing happening in a long time. When you actually look at what they do, mostly they file writs, they file briefs. They don't even usually pay for the lawsuits that are actually happening. So they're not necessary for the lawsuits. The lawsuits are done just because the way the law is set up. 90% of the time, the NRA couldn't run the lawsuit if they wanted to, because they aren't damaged. They're not an individual that has rights. So they're not really necessary in the legal wins we've had. Plus, like I said, they've been used like a bludgeon against the gun. Not only to the damage that they themselves did to the gun community, but it's gotten to this in this country where all the pundits have to say is, well, yeah, the NRA supports this. And 90% of the people in the middle go, well, fuck that then. I don't like the NRA. So I don't support it. And that needs to go away.
Yeah, and I don't want to just, I see an option besides leaving it at that and then changing it to where guns are normal and the NRA is back on top again.
If you want to run for president of the NRA, I'll definitely vote for you.
No, I don't want to do it, but I like the idea of, we have how many gun owners in this country and how many points of view are we allowed to have, right? So we're having an NRA national convention in 2019. Everybody thought it wasn't cool or didn't think it was worth it to go in and have a, some kind of a run on the members meeting. And we ended up with more of the same, and then what we ended up with today. And I'm just suggesting that with as many gun owners as we got, and as many members of the NRA we've got, I'd like to see something more happen at NRA show than worrying about fucking grip angles and fucking red dot plates.
Yeah, I mean, that's more of a sales, the industry side of the gun community. And unfortunately nowadays, because of social media and it being funded mostly by the industry side of the gun community, that's what you see more of, is the industry side. That's why SHOT Show is a bigger deal than the Second Amendment Foundation's Gun Rights Policy Conference. You know, people don't pay attention to that because there's not a bunch of products there. There's not
nobody's paying anybody to go to Gun Rights Policy.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the Gun Rights Policy Convention should be bigger than SHOT Show, because I think it's more important overall. But right now, the industry has, like most of society, has been co-opted by big money business. And unfortunately, that's what we have to deal with right now. But we have to, while that's happening, we have to just try our hardest not to lose sight of the things that are important, like activism, etc., and not just salesmanship. Because, I mean, look at YouTube channels now that are gun channels. How many are left that are actually activists, and how many are left that are fear mongers that advertise product, or just people who just advertise product? You know, that's most the gun community now online. Did we ever have any questions coming in? I haven't seen any. So,
well, I appreciate it. Like I say, we haven't chatted about that in a while.
No,
like we changed our minds, but
well, things evolve. I mean, it's a constantly evolving thing. Now, do I believe that the Dale Rickety did do something here? Hold on, that's a recurring payment from that person. But Dale Rickety, let's see if he asked a question. He did not. He just made a donation to the Pets and Vets Fund over on PayPal. So no questions coming in yet over there. But yeah, it is something, like I said, we haven't talked about for a while, and it is something that evolves and changes. And maybe someday the NRA would be a great organization. I just don't see it happening, because as long as it's the king, it'll act like a king, and it'll do what's best for the king and the crown. And I just don't think we have need of a king anymore. Let's see if there's any questions. Never Enough Ammo never weighed in much on any of this.
There was no room to weigh in on that conversation.
You could have said something.
No, my opinion is pretty boring. I'm pretty much in the middle. I have not liked the NRA for a very long time. Still don't like them. They've turned on gun owners too many times, and I'm not a fan. At the same time, if they do reform, if they do change, I'd be all for it. But I'm not going to put any of my time and energy into helping make that happen, because I honestly am not that concerned with what happens to them because of what the damage that they've done. But if they did reform, if they did change, if they did become a better organization, if they proved that to gun owners, I'd be happy to give support back to them if that happened. But it's not anything I'm that concerned with at the moment. So.
Oh yeah, if they went to if tomorrow I heard, hey, we've changed the structure completely. The president and all these positions are now volunteer positions, people that have retired and are big in the gun community, blah, blah, blah. All the money, every dime we get, 80 cents of it is going to actually fighting for gun rights. Well, then, of course, yes, I'd support them. But that's just not realistic with these big organizations. Did you all see where that airman was shot and killed by Florida deputies?
No, I hadn't heard about this one.
I think I saw an article on it. I think it was a young black man that was the airman, if I'm not mistaken, if I saw the article, but I didn't read it. So I'm not up on what actually happened.
It unfortunately does not surprise me that stories like that are in the news.
If you came in right now and told me that, hey, did you see about the cops in New York City that shot a bunch of nuns and orphans in the face? I'd be like, yes, sounds about right.
Yep.
Your opinion on the deputy that busted into the wrong apartment and shot and killed an airman by himself. Is that the same story, I'm assuming?
It sounds like the same story.
Yeah, I don't have any of the details, so I can't weigh on any of them. Police officers, in my opinion, seldom have reason to kick in a door and start shooting. There's very few crimes that get stopped that way. That's more about playing Rambo and justifying your own existence and justifying all your toys than anything else, because all these times, even the one where the police officers just recently got killed in a shootout because they went up and served a warrant. Well, they knew this guy was dangerous. They knew this guy was armed and he was a felon. Why didn't you wait till he went to the grocery store or to the gym and, pick him off as he's going, take him into custody, serve all your papers, everything?
Because they like the flash, they like the bang, they like the headlines, they like the violence. It's the exact same thing that we've talked about 5,000 times about Jesus in Waco, right? They followed this dude for months. They knew every move he made. They knew everything that he did, yet they could have picked him off at one of his many, many weekly stops going into town to do 100 different things, but they didn't. They waited until they could get him at home in the compound, and they turned it into a, whatever it was, the 40, 60 something day standoff, where turns out that a bunch of, dozens of women and children ended up getting killed. Oops, our bad.
So we're trying to send a message and justify our existence.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's ridiculous. They could have got him 100 times.
Yeah.
There were several times where agents, when you look back at it now, there's records of agents saying, hey, we can get him right now. Do you want us to get him? No, stand down. Don't get him. We don't want him right now. Because, wouldn't make a big scene later. We wouldn't get to stand on the rubble after we bust the doors down. We don't get to stand in front of the building and make a big press conference. So
they wanted to look good after Ruby Ridge. They wanted a win. They wanted something that would look good in the media after Ruby Ridge. There was communications that came from the FBI and the ATF at that time saying that's exactly what they were doing. Mm-hmm. They were trying to have a triumphing story about how the ATF and the FBI stepped in and stopped this crazy man, to wipe out the Ruby Ridge headlines. And so they didn't do it the right way. And a lot of people died that didn't have to.
Since you're talking about these issues, right? And what you're right, but then it wasn't just a crazy guy, it was a nationalist. And now what are they bringing up again? Nationalists. How many times have they run it fucking nationalists as the bad guy? So what's up with that? Like, is that just a go-to, or is that a persistent thing they're trying to make happen? Is this a long-term game, or is this just like if we need to default to something, it's the nationalists?
Well, I think it's a default because, There was never any claims by him that he was any kind of nationalist.
Well,
And he was psycho. He was a pedophile. He was a lot of things. He thought he was
a century old, and I've been to a million gun shows all over the fucking country, and I have never seen this like nationalist movement.
No, I haven't either.
Well, nationalist just means America first kind of a thing. And I think
that's what I'm saying. But I mean, even like some kind of common like wink, wink, we all kind of do this fist bump because we know that we're all the same. Like, fuck that. We're all weird and we hate each other. We're always getting in fights. We just all happen to appreciate this one piece of property that they fear.
Yeah, but yeah, they just use nationalism as a dirty word because you can say white nationalist or Christian nationalist or all this stuff. And it's basically just saying, well, you're this and you also believe America first, or you're this and you wish it was this way for all of America. So like Christian nationalists, it just means they think this is a Christian nation and it should be a Christian nation, you know, despite what the Constitution says. So it's just mindset, and nationalist is so widespread. You're a nationalist if you go, well, I need to buy a washer and dryer, but I won't buy one made in a foreign country. I have to buy an American one. Well, that's a form of nationalism. So they've just tried to take all of it as like one little bundle and say, anytime you attach nationalist to someone, that also is the same as saying racist, like Christian racist or, you know, white racist. And that's what I think they've been doing over the last several years, is trying to just convert nationalist to racist, because that means you're against the foreigners and against this and against that. So you're obviously a racist as well. So it's just code for racist, I think, in most cases. Or at least that's what they want to make you think. If they carried, what guns would Trump and Biden carry? Will we ever have a president who carries a firearm? Well, probably not, because they got Secret Service, so they don't need one. If I had Secret Service, I wouldn't carry a gun. Well, we know
I'd want a Glock 18, right?
Yeah, exactly. But we know Biden, of course, would just carry around a shotgun, because he said you don't need anything but a shotgun. And I know Trump has a little revolver, so I think he's more of a little revolver kind of person. So probably a little Smith.
Like, you've seen one that he actually carries, or just like he owns one?
One that he actually carried at some points. He
carried a revolver. Apparently, he has several guns that have been gifted to him.
Yeah,
but he actually carried. So
yeah, he carried a little revolver. He's not like a gun guy, but he's got several guns. His kids are gun people, but he's more of a just their tools. You know, he's not a fanatic or anything about them. But yeah, so I think he'd be a little revolver, because that's what he does carry. And Biden, of course, would be a shotgun. Tim Allen just bought a couple of flags over on my website. I bought a TYMP flag and a bullpup flag. There was another flag he wanted me to make, and I forgot what it was. I didn't make it. Let's see here. Is there any other questions I can find? I think gun websites has a good point of having influence on a national scale. I like Yankees more local forces, but we're working against a nationalized threat. Well, actually, the threat we're facing isn't really nationalized. It's countrywide. It's spread, but it's not like nationalized. It's run out of fucking New York. So it's like a New York.
We have a national organization. We have a national organization that started up in 2015 called National African American Gun Owners Association, and they're bottom up. So they're a bunch of local organizations, local clubs that come together under the banner of the national, so that it takes information and techniques and what's applicable to neighborhoods and areas and regions and brings it up to the national so everybody can be aware of, but doesn't distribute information down like NRA. And I've thought something like that is way more like open source, I like to call it, for a structure than, like you say, I think what you don't like is NRA's bottom or top down. Like, everything the NRA says is, here's how you do it. If it doesn't apply to your area, you know, this is the way we do it. And like you say, that's from like the 50s and the 60s, when they were like, hey, let's establish this in the first place. They didn't know that they would need regional versions of it when they first invented it. It's just they never changed it since.
I think the attacks that we've got as far as on gun rights have drastically changed in the last 20 years. They moved from national attacks, which we saw, all the way up into 2014, and they've moved to focusing on local, state, You know, like it would be very hard for me to imagine with the state of politics that exists today, right? Unlike 20 years ago, that any major national federal gun control is going to actually pass. But on a state level, where they're focusing all their time and their energy because they realized it was a lot easier to get things done on a state level, that's why we've seen, you know, at the same time, so many states going to concealed carry and open carry and constitutional carry and things like this. Other states just going down the toilet when it comes to gun control, because the whole battle has moved from a federal level to a state level. And I think that's where they've been focusing their time and attention, at least since right after Sandy Hook, when they realized they couldn't get anything passed on a national level. Bloomberg and all, you know, the Moms Demand Attention and all these organizations switched their focus drastically from pushing for federal legislation to state level legislation. And I think that's where the biggest fights have been. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that's where the biggest fights have been for the last, you know, 10 years, give or take. And, you know, so, you know, and I don't know, you know, if we can certainly make the argument, I'm not sitting here to say one way or the other, but you can make the argument that national organizations, you know, can get involved on state levels. The NRA certainly was never any good at that. They never did that. So they don't have a good track record of that. Second Amendment Foundation and GOA have had a much better track record of that in the last decade than NRA did for their entire existence before then. So, I mean, I think there's room for national organizations to be able to take on the fights that are out there. And I think there's some that do it. And I think, you know, NRA was not one of them. But I think a lot of the heavy lifting now, because these fights have moved to state level, are at these state level organizations. These are the ones that are doing most of the work when it comes to taking these things head on. You know, because they had to. I mean, they didn't have a choice. Once the wind shifted to attacking states directly instead of going for federal legislation. And I think it took some of these national organizations a little while to catch up and realize, oh crap, you know, we have to focus on this. And the NRA never did that. They just were like, yeah, it's not our problem. You know, that's not what we do. We sit in Washington and bitch and moan and scare people or whatever. And like I said, if they change and become a better organization, awesome. But I think any organization that deserves any of our attention, our time, our money, whatever it is, needs to be focusing on states and where those attacks are really coming from. And if they can't even do that, then they can go fuck themselves. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, NRA has never shown any interest in helping out a state that's being attacked ever. They didn't, you know, after the assault weapons ban was lifted in 2005, they didn't go and help California. They didn't go and help New York. They didn't go and help Massachusetts, you know, when those states started passing massive gun control to keep up the assault weapons bans in their states. They didn't do anything. They didn't lift a finger. And then after Sandy Hook, when Colorado got hit, when what's the other? There was a couple other states that got hit as well. They didn't lift a finger to do anything there. You know, when Washington got hit, they didn't lift a finger there. You know what I mean? Like, they just don't have a track record for caring about where the fight now is. And these other national organizations and state level organizations said, okay, we'll do it. And they've, you know, been doing the best they can. And in some cases doing really a good job of doing that. And until the NRA changes that attitude, and maybe they will, then I just don't care. I mean, I'm just not concerned about them.
I let you guys babysit the little puppy while I went in and got Chinese food.
I couldn't hear that. Did anybody else hear that?
Hear what?
What G just said. I couldn't hear that.
I was letting y'all babysit the puppy when I went in and got Chinese food.
Oh, okay. I saw you went in somewhere and got something. But let's see. Are there any other questions come in? It was the Give a Hoot flag that I wanted to made. Emerson University in Atlanta has outside agitators teaching demonstrators how to hold the line against riot police. Yeah, that's not surprising. There's some people who make their entire living off of being, you know, activists, agitators, whatever. So it's not surprising. And plus, you got all these big money interests that want to make things look like grassroots movements. Like, this is what the people want, when it's got nothing to do with the people. They just convince some easily convinced teenagers or something that this is what you believe. So it's nothing new. It's nothing shocking. So it's just common.
There's a website that has a list of all the, or it has the tax records for all the different every nonprofit, I guess. And 2 years ago, I went through, spent some time, thanks to my Patreon, so you let me have the time to do that kind of stuff. I went through and pulled basically all the data. I saw some video or some reference to it, and I was like, hot dang, I'm going to go over there. Anyway, so I went over and grabbed from 2012 to 2020 data, and then just the other day I went through and pulled all the data again to make it current to 2022. So it's kind of interesting, you know, during the bullshit years there, how these organizations all swole and now they're coming back down again as far as their money. But last time I did this, I didn't include the antis. So to just put it in a general nutshell, the NRA at a maximum was like a 330 something, 350, and now it's down to like 220 to, you know, to give us like a gold standard. That's how much the NRA is bringing in. That's 26 what did I just say, millions of dollars, right? 200 something millions of dollars. The next biggest is the fucking place in Colorado that nobody talks about, bringing in 15 to 17 million on election years and down to 7 on non-election years. So there's people that exploit our fucking situation. And then we have Gun Owners of America and Second Amendment Foundation both coming in around you know, like the 10 million, right? So we're talking our biggest organizations are 200 and then 10 and 10 and NSSF is like 14, but you know, that SHOT Show and stuff. The other side, the antis, 65 million here, 45 million here, 65 million here, 65 million. They're dwarfing us. They're pounding us with money. And to suggest that anything on their side is grassroots, like you say, is completely fucking fake.
Yeah, it's not really grassroots. Let's see here. I'm trying to do something real quick. Y'all can talk amongst yourselves. I'm trying to find a comment here. I saw it just a second ago. Here it is right here. It's from, who is this from? I think it's from, what's his face? Go Shatter. Ninth Circuit has backed California law that states can sell and disclose your private information from firearm forms. I don't have any knowledge of that, but it doesn't surprise me whatsoever. Ninth Circuit pretty much rubber stamps everything that California does. I think Ninth Circuit is just a bunch of California politicians, pretty much. Let's see here. Is there any other questions coming in? I'm not seeing a whole lot. I'm not really seeing a lot of questions.
What do you guys think about the Fifth Circuit and the Texas suppressor thing that could kill the NFA, or is that too optimistic?
Well, I think it might be a little optimistic because the Fifth Circuit right now kind of has a reputation of that the Supreme Court is even sick of them. So, and they're very conservative, the Supreme Court, and they're like, these yahoos have gone crazy. Although I agree with them 100% on the actual case and that the NFA needs to go away. I don't think we'd see a mass increase in violence in this country just because the NFA went away. But I don't know how optimistic I am of it because we've seen things like this before. But it tends the Supreme Court tends to shy away from them unless, of course, it goes in the favor of getting away from the NFA. So it's one of those we'll have to wait and see, I guess. But if the Fifth Circuit rules that, yeah, these things are wrong and can't be constitutional, well, Supreme Court will have to weigh in if they want it to be able to stand. So it'll have to move up the chain somehow. I just don't know what will happen when it does. What was this? Emory. Wait, no, that's not it. Large number of demonstrators have assembled for outdoor hand-to-hand combat classes at the UCLA campus. Many of them are not even students. I'm fine with that because everybody should learn some self-defense. I mean, I might not agree with what their motivation for doing it is, but most people should learn some self-defense. Did you see the body cam footage? See, that's another one of that senior a senior airman who got shot in his home by a deputy in Florida who responded to the wrong apartment. I still haven't seen this story, but it seems like it's on people's minds because we keep getting questions asked about it. Let's see. I don't think I see any more questions coming in, either over here nor over on PayPal. If anybody wants to donate to the Pets and Vets and ask a question, you can always use the link at the top. I pinned it at the top up there. There's a PayPal link up there. You can use that, or you can just put it in the live chat here and put at the Yankee Marshal in front of it. Unless it's it's got to be at the Yankee Gearhead. It's got to be at the Yankee Gearhead. At the Yankee Marshal doesn't work. I keep forgetting I'm on a fucking other channel because of what's been going on.
That's
y'all don't know
weird.
what
A whole bunch of channels have been smacked lately.
Yeah, they're concentrated effort trying to get rid of us. I mean, it's very clear. And I think the ones they want to get rid of the most are the ones that they can't point to and use as a bad example. You know what I mean? People that aren't saying, we need to fucking burn down the government and shoot everybody we see, and all that stuff. If you're not doing that, if you're not presenting a bad example or fear mongering or, raking in money, they are more, I think, more interested than ever in getting rid of you if you're pro-gun or a lot of other conservative issues. Which I hate that I have to say pro-gun and other conservative issues because guns shouldn't be a conservative issue. And that's another thing I think we have to blame the NRA for. Let's see, where are we at? I don't see any other questions coming at all. If you've got something for Never Enough Ammo or gun websites, we're open for questions. So if you got any comments coming in, you better hurry up, or else G-Webs is going to start another fight about the NRA, and you'll have to listen to us do that again. Let's see. I'm not seeing anything. Y'all see anything coming into your names? Because I ain't seeing anything.
I'm honestly not paying attention to the chat, so I don't know. I'll let you take care of that. It's your chat.
See, that's how much you care about the viewers. You're not even paying attention to the chat.
I don't even have a chat pulled up, man.
I ordered a Pooh and Piglet shirt and Lobo holster for my birthday yesterday. Thank you. Well, I didn't have anything to do with the making. I'm not making the holster, but the shirts I designed. I like the Mack Trucks Bulldog logo. You could do a similar logo if you run out of ideas. Well, I already have a similar one. I got Mavis with her. She's a bulldog, and I got a picture of her holding the gun. I got flags of it, hats of it, shirts of it. It's called the Bullpup. So, in fact, Tim Allen just bought a Bullpup flag. So there you go. That already exists. Let's see here. Where am I at? What am I doing? I'm trying to find where I'm at. I'm not seeing any questions, so it's not real easy to keep up with stuff right now. Well, it's easy to keep up with, too easy to keep up with. Do we all know what a computer is? I hope so.
Well, none of us are black, so yes.
What?
Oh, you haven't heard about that?
No, I don't know what.
Oh, just Democrats showing their latent racism again. The governor of New York came out and was talking about how dumb black people are. She's like, there are kids growing up all over New York that don't even know what the word computer means, because we all know that Democrats have that, as we like to say,
these poor, pitiful black people,
racism of low expectations.
Yes, these poor, pitiful black people that will never make anything of themselves.
They don't know what a computer is. They don't know how to get an ID. Like all these things is just, it's that white savior complex where they don't realize they're being extremely racist. Where if let's say Trump said the same thing, it would be headline news 24/7 for 2 weeks.
I don't even know who the governor of New York is, though.
I can't remember her name. Some cunt. I don't know.
I used to know, but then nowadays I don't know.
Because it was Cuomo for a long time, and then then whoever replaced him was somebody else. I don't fucking know. Some chick. I don't know. It's the same. Look, it's the same thing again and again. This is something that's been consistently coming up. I started noticing it really, really bad when Trump got elected. And, but it was something that started coming up when all the voter ID laws stuff came out back in, was it 2012, when all the conservative states started pushing really hard for that. And it was just like, oh, well, we can't expect black people to know how to get an ID or know where their DMV is or have, the ability to get to a DMV. And then that moved on to, well, I mean, these black kids, they don't even know where the library is. And they don't know how to use a computer. They don't know how to look up where their DMV is or where their library is on the computer. They don't know how to use the internet. And it's just like, oh, so you're just blatantly racist. You just think lesser of black people. Apparently, you think they're too dumb, too stupid to figure anything out. And it's been constant, man. You see those it was like last year, there was one of these big, more right-wing channels that did the whole interview on the street thing in New York. And they were asking about the black people having IDs, and all the white liberals were like, oh yeah, well, we can't do this and we can't do that because, black people can't get IDs and they can't, they don't know how to use the internet and they probably don't have access to the internet and all this stuff. And then they went around and asked the same questions to black people. And they were like, yeah, I have an ID and I know where the DMV is. What are you talking about? And it just showed and they don't think they're being racist, but they're totally being racist.
Yeah, I don't believe in most voter ID laws and stuff simply because I just don't like anybody having to do that stuff. I don't think one race is necessarily put out more by it. However, I do think poorer people and working class people are more put out by them. But other than that, I don't really see
the whole voter ID thing. I'm very torn on, because as a libertarian, I don't think you should have to show ID for a right, period, end of story. The other side of that is, when we have an immigration problem, I do think there needs to be a way to make sure that only citizens vote. It's a right of citizens.
Well,
it's not the right to keep and bear arms, which, by the way, I'm all for, like, people who aren't here legally to own arms, because I don't think that is a right of this country. I think that's a natural born right that you have to keep and bear arms and be free. However, to vote in a specific country, I think you need to be a citizen of that country. I don't know how I reconcile feeling both ways about that. You know what I mean? Like, I admit it's like I see it from both sides. Both sides make sense. Like, I don't want people who aren't citizens voting in our elections. At the same time, I don't think you should have to show an ID, because, that's your right.
You have to be registered to vote. You have to know your name. You have to know where you live, and you have to know your district, and you have to actually be registered. I think that's enough of a check, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think we need to start doing, papers, please, for people to vote. And even Mike Johnson today admitted that there's absolutely no evidence that illegals are voting in elections. So I don't see a real point in the government getting involved in things when they don't have to get involved in it. If it was actually a problem, well, then, yeah, we need to solve it. But if the problem doesn't exist, we don't need the government having leeway to make things harder for people when there's no real good reason to do it.
No, I agree. I just can see a potential problem when we are having, we get on average 15,000 people crossing the border every day.
Yeah.
That's just between Texas and Arizona and California.
That's one thing.
No, they don't all stay, and you're right. But
there's no evidence of voting, so I don't really see the problem.
And then you've got states like California that are passing laws to let them be cops and let them vote.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Now, they're not allowed to vote in federal elections, supposedly, but they're allowed to vote in state elections, and they are allowed to register,
for state elections.
So
they still don't, though.
I see both sides of it, basically. I don't know what my opinion is, but I see both sides of it.
But even historically, like up in, was it Minneapolis, that gave non-citizens a right to vote in local elections, but they still don't, because people that are not citizens don't want to go somewhere and like, hey, I'm here officially to say I'm not a citizen and I want to vote. So in those places where they made big stinks about these people being able to vote in local elections, they had almost like a negative increase in the number of people that were not citizens voting in the elections.
For now, but until it becomes a
problem, we deal with it.
Until it becomes, it could become a problem, especially in places like California or New York, where they're pushing this stuff through, where they're doing everything they can to make people illegally there feel as comfortable as possible, including, at some point they're going to be like, you know what? Yeah, I can go vote. You know what? Yeah, they're not going to do anything to me. They're feeding me. They're putting me up in housing. In California, They literally are letting non-citizens be cops. Now, I don't care about the gun aspect of that. As I said, I think everybody should have the right to keep and bear arms. I don't care whether you're legal or not. But to be a cop that gets to enforce the rule of law on others, that's insane.
Well, I don't mind if someone's given provisionary citizenship if they're going to perform a role for society that it doesn't seem a lot of people want to do, or at least not the right people want to do. Just like, you know, if foreigners sign up for the military, if someone from Mexico comes to this country, signs up for military service, I'm a firm believer that once they do their 4 years, 8 years, whatever, boom, fast path to citizenship because you stepped up and served your country. So I can kind of see the police thing, and I can also understand the logistics of wanting people to have a say in their local government if it's mostly these people, but that's too much of a Pandora's box, if you ask me.
Yeah. I've said many times before, I like when it comes to things like DACA, kids who are here, you know, actual kids. I'm not talking about the gang members that come over and pretend they're kids, but like actual kids that are here and things like that. I have no problem helping those kids out. I have no problem saying that if you come here illegally, but you like put your life on the line in the military, that should be a pathway to citizenship and all that kind of stuff. The issue is then like, but at a certain point, you have to admit there's a problem. And we're not fixing the problem. And as long as we're not fixing the problem, I'm all for saying, you know what, screw DACA. I'm sorry, I feel bad for those kids, but we have a problem that nobody's fixing at the border. And same thing with like, you wanna perform a public service to become a citizenship and provisional citizenship and all that kind of stuff. Under normal circumstances, I'd be fine with that. But we aren't dealing with normal circumstances. And if we're not going to fix the problem first, we're just going to try and mitigate the effects of the problem by placating. All we're doing is encouraging more people to come here illegally. And that's a problem because we're placating. And it's like you and me have talked about many times. You know, we don't need a wall to keep people out. We need to mitigate the benefits, like let's say coming down on corporations that hire these people, you know, send those people to prison and then go, you know, I mean, like we've talked about this many times. That's how you discourage.
And pass federal laws that say no states can't encourage illegal activities from non-citizens.
Yeah. So we need to do that. And I think when you're all letting them be cops and you're letting them come vote, you are encouraging people to come here illegally. You're encouraging that. And I think that should not be allowed, whether it's a corporation doing it or the government doing it or whoever's doing it. Under normal circumstances, if we weren't encouraging anything and we end up with kids over here or we end up with people over here that, you know, weren't encouraged to be here, but they get here and they go, you know what, I want to join the military. I'm all for that. Awesome, dude. But we are encouraging this behavior with these programs. And I can't get behind that.
And getting nothing back for it socially. The only people that are getting something for it are the big industries, etc., that profit off of the labor. And people say, oh, but it's small farms and stuff that profit too. Bullshit. There's hardly any small farms left.
Oh, yeah.
It's all corporate farms. So it's corporate industry making the money.
Yep. Yeah.
This idea that it's mom and pop stores keeping food on the shelves. It's not.
As somebody who worked with farmers for many years, no. It was the corporate farms who were hiring the illegals. It was not the dude that owned a couple 100 acres somewhere, a family farm that had been in his family since the 1930s. Okay, he wasn't the one hiring illegals to go out in the fields. He
did it. The big corporate farms would report him and get him put out of business.
Exactly.
And buy his property. So no, wasn't them doing that. It's big money interests. A long time ago, especially when these people started encouraging farms, the government to pay farmers not to farm, or corporations said, "Hey, well then we can just go and buy up all these farms and make money for doing nothing." So, and that's when they really started the big buy off of all the farms. So most farms now are corporate owned.
I know, which is a shame.
Even the ones we've got some big names here locally that are big tourist attraction farms, and people think they're still, because they got the name of the family on the farm, they think that they're no, they're owned by big corporations.
Yep.
So G-Webs wants. Oh, where did G-Webs go?
He dropped.
I was trying to deal with my phone. No, back on the computer now.
Okay. I think he was back in, but I was like, where did he go? Never Enough Ammo was just blah, 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 blah. So I didn't even notice that you were gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Couldn't get a word in. But we're pretty much out of time. I did put a link in the chat over there to the give a hoot flag in case Tim actually still wants to give a hoot flag. I made it while Never Enough Ammo was. So you can go over and get that now if you want. But does anybody got any final things they want to say tonight before we get out of here?
No, nothing. I got nothing.
Nobody had much tonight. We didn't get any comment, many questions or not. Well, we are, like I said, on a small. We only had like 150 people in here. So hopefully I'll be able to get back on my own channel soon. I love how when they say you're banned, but they don't tell you how long, because there's no like set criteria that says, oh, you get caught doing this, you lose live chats for a week. Or if you get 2 within a certain period, you lose it for a month. There's no criteria.
Nope.
The people that do the internal reviews, nobody knows who they are. Even the people that you talk to that work for YouTube don't know who those people are. They'll tell you, we don't know those people. We're not allowed to know those people because we can't question their judgment. There's no criteria. They can just say, hey, I didn't like what you did, you're banned forever. Or, hey, what you did is not within the rules, but I kind of like it. So I'm just going to ban you for 12 hours. And there's no oversight of it whatsoever, believe it or not. No oversight. So in fact, they go to great efforts to keep the people that make the decisions secret so that nobody can go after them. So I have no idea how long we're banned for because they won't tell you, and there is no guidelines you can look at. It's just up to the person who decides that you're too dangerous. So hopefully it'll be a short time. It's already been over a week. So it was, first I thought, well, maybe it'll be 3 days. No, it wasn't 3 days. Then it was maybe a week. No, it's not a week. So don't know when it's going to be. Hopefully it'll just be a month at the most. But that's where we're at on that. So hopefully soon we'll be back on the other channel. But for now, I just want to say thanks to everybody for showing up tonight. Thanks to Never Enough Ammo and Gun Websites for coming in. We even got a couple of conversations going tonight. I will see you all. I'll see you guys again in 2 weeks, hopefully on my regular channel. And I'll see everybody else tomorrow. Until then, remember, always carry and stay safe till I see you again.